I'm Christine Stavropoulos.
Και εγώ ο Νίκος Σαμίδης. Και αυτό είναι το Greek Podyssey, το podcast της Ομογένειας.
A podcast for Hellenes worldwide, sharing stories, culture, identity, laughs and a little bit of tsugrisma along the way.
Γιατί μπορεί να φύγαμε από την Ελλάδα, αλλά η Ελλάδα δεν έφυγε ποτέ από μας.
This podcast brought to you by Natasha Karamiho, your trusted legal voice in Greece for all your legal matters, and Helco Consulting, trusted services for all business and investments in Greece.
Welcome to another episode of the Greek Podyssey. Today's episode is again focused on Hellenism, Greek identity, and endurance. And with me in the studio, I have great pleasure in welcoming and introducing Mr. Costas Vertzayias, who also is a very dear friend of mine. He's a prominent Sydney-based lawyer. He's an author, historian, a very well-loved community leader within Australia, widely recognised for his advocacy of Hellenism and his historical accounts of modern Greece. He's penned extensively on Greek history, particularly the Greek War of Independence and the Asia Minor catastrophe. Mr. Vertzayias has also been made an member of the Order of Australia for his decades of service to the Greek community and his efforts to promote Greek language and culture in Australia, which he is doing a fabulous job. Costa, welcome to the Greek Podyssey.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you for your kind words.
All true, all true. You are very well regarded as a historian and your expertise in the War of Independence. Today we want to explore Greece post the War of Independence, how we came together, how our identity was defined, and how we retained our culture during the Ottoman period and beyond. So why don't I turn the mic over to you and you can give us an introduction and then we'll have a little discussion on this.
Thank you, Christina. I would say that pride in our heritage at all times has been a decisive factor in what has been achieved by Hellenism. For example, in the 18th century, late 17th and 18th century, Greek schools sprung up throughout the Ottoman Empire. This was an amazing development because there was no Greek state, no Greek government, no direction. It was a spontaneous action on the part of Greek diaspora communities living everywhere to maintain that heritage, that Hellenic heritage. And what better way than to build schools? So you have the Evangeliki Scholi in Smyrna, you have the academy in Aivaliki opposite Lesvos, and you have in Trapezunda the Frontisterio. All these important state-of-the-art, high-standard education centers were created by communities, Greek communities, not by the Greek state. The same happened in the Habsburg Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You had very influential Greeks living in Vienna and in Budapest and in Trieste. So in those three cities, you had very powerful Greek communities working very hard to maintain identity. And when the Greek Revolution came about, the Philiki Eteria turned on these communities for funding and they reciprocated. So you have a situation where Greeks from all over the world have always loved and treasured their heritage and their identity. And this is Hellenism's greatest asset. You can see it in Australia, how we are so dedicated, so devoted, so passionate about maintaining everything Greek.
Can you define Hellenism for me?
Well, Hellenism has two meanings for me. We could say the narrow meaning would be an ethnic cultural definition where it's people from Greece or their descendants living in Australia, Canada, America, and elsewhere, who either speak the Greek language or who define themselves as Greek, follow Greek culture, love Greek food, learn Greek dancing, go and visit Greece, or of course living in Greece. So that would be the narrow meaning. But we have a broader meaning for Hellenism, which includes non-Greeks, and this is very important. We never lose track of that Hellenism in its wider meaning, in fact, is Western civilization. Western civilization is not only built on the foundations of Hellenism, it is Hellenism. And so when we talk about Hellenism in a wider sense, we should be embracing all of humanity, because with globalization, I'm going off on a tangent, and with the changes that are coming about at such a rapid pace, the values of Hellenism are more important today than ever before.
The reason I asked you that question is there was a comment on, because we always refer to Hellenism, and a lady from Greece scoffed at that and said, it's such an outdated, why do you use the word Hellenism, almost as though it was a neo-fascist identity of, being racistly Greek. Hellenism for me and for us, and as you just described, is a culture.
Yes.
And it's a culture that's embraced worldwide, and why it's important that we continue to preserve it and to disperse it.
I will come back to why the War of Independence was successful. It's because the intellectuals of Europe embraced that concept of Hellenism in a romantic way, and fought in many different ways to ensure the rebirth of a Greek state, because exactly of that concept that Hellenism does embrace the world, the whole European scene. But on your comment, we have in Greece a country which is very different, a society which is very different from Australia. In one way, we are fortunate to be in Australia that we're not so politicized. In Greece, everything is politicized. It starts in high school with associations and political parties being involved, and it continues, and everyone is pigeonholed from the left or the right, and every word you use or the way you speak is interpreted as being, that person is from the left, or that person is a fascist from the right.
Well, that happens now around the world.
Well, it's happening in Australia.
Yeah.
But in Greece, it's been entrenched from day one. And one of the problems with that is in Greece, and I have some sympathy for people who want to give the word Greek identity a wider scope, is that Greece has its biggest problem, I would say, is a demographic one. And it is a major problem that only in the last 5 years or so governments are coming to grips with. It is a huge problem. And so we have
Can you just explain the problem of the demographic?
During the global financial crisis, there was a brain drain. So Greece's best young people left, and most of them never came back. And secondly, again, as a result of the global financial crisis, but also trends in Europe and around the Western world, young people are not having children. So Greece's population is actually getting smaller. And the estimates for the year 2050 is it will be close to about 8 million people. And this is a frightening situation. And the only way that can be reversed is with migration. Mm-hmm. And there's a tendency in Greece from people from the right to say, no, we must have only ethnic Greeks. And people from the left making the comment that that person made to you, that, that's a fascist way to look at it, because we need people. So if they are going to be good citizens, it's up, and Hellenism is so powerful as a cultural embrace, then these people will be proud to become Greek, and over time they will be.
And it's happening.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a phrase you said earlier. You said the rebirth of the Greek state. A lot of people will argue that the Greek state was born after the War of Independence. So what do you define as the rebirth of the Greek state?
Well, it's interesting you make that statement, because I remember in the 90s when we were having all these problems with Slav Macedonians, they were saying there was never a Greece ever in history.
Exactly.
It was created in 1830, so you were created in 1830. We were established in 1945. So what's the difference? 150 years. So that was that argument. But no one can seriously dispute that there's been many Greek states over the last 3,500 years. So they take different forms, different shapes, and interestingly, even different names. And we've been criticized for that. Are you Greeks? Are you Hellenes? Are you Achaeans? Are you Romir?
Yes.
What is your name?
I'd like your definition, because there's a lot of people that say, well, you didn't form a country till after the War of Independence, so you're Bulgarians, you're Turks, you're this. What are we? How can you give your academic perspective on that?
Well, that's interesting, because science has come to assist us, and there are studies, scientific studies, proving that we still have a huge percentage of DNA going back to the Mycenaeans. So, in fact, it's up to 80% Mycenaean. So that means we have the same DNA that goes back 4,000 years. So so looking at that point of view, but I don't want to push.
No, you know why? One of the reasons I want to raise this point is how wonderful would the world be if we all accept that, yes, we have people migration moves, we have DNA that is combined, and if we all accepted that, people wouldn't be having a lot of the wars. And although a lot of the wars are geopolitical, based on, they use ethnicity and religion as a reason. We believe that a lot of it is geopolitical. But if we took all of that out and we said, all right, science, as you said, proves it. Let's just move on and get on.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, it really is the culture that is the predominant factor in your identity. And whether you are of Mycenaean origin that goes back 4,000 years, or of an Albanian, the Arvanites that settled in Greece, or the Bulgarians who actually were Turks originally, they don't like to believe it, but they were, or of the Crusaders. The Peloponneso has a lot of French enclaves that people aren't aware of. We have a lot of Italian influence in the Ep5, in Crete, in Cyprus,
in Syros.
In Syros,
well.
you still have a Catholic community in the Kykladas.
A huge one, yes.
And there was a large Genoese community even in Lesbos.
Exactly.
So,
and it's reflected in the architecture as well.
So we cannot be fanatic and claim everything is Greek. We're not Mr. Portokalis. So we don't want to do that. We don't have to prove our point, because the academics
have proven
it for us. So the contribution of Hellenism to world civilization is beyond doubt, beyond dispute, and even the Black Athena attempts of a few decades back have been ridiculed. There was a strong movement to try and establish that the ancient Egyptians were from sub-Sahara Africa, and they created the Greek civilization. This is not true. There's an interchange continuously. One of the reasons, and I'm going to get in trouble for this.
Not from us, you're not.
In Australia, the Aborigines, our First Nations people, who have a wonderful culture, but it's not a civilization, and they didn't achieve a civilization to have cities and the will and writing, because they did not have interaction with other peoples. They were completely isolated on this island. Now, you say this and you can be accused of being a fascist, but it is the reality.
It is reality. Unless you're exposed and have interaction, how do you evolve and know that these things are possible.
And the civilizations of Mesopotamia and Egypt obviously had a great influence on the civilization of Greece. We cannot deny that. But what happened in Greece was something entirely different. The Greeks put man, I better say human,
Yeah, it's okay. You don't have to be politically
at
correct.
the center of everything.
Yes.
And that is the big difference. It was no longer theocratic, created by the gods and directed by the gods. It was no longer an absolute power or government by the pharaoh. It was man involved in every aspect of society. It was man, and Protagoras said, man is the measure of all things. So you have people writing literature for the sake of telling you a story. And the Iliad, and I keep saying this, is the first literature of Western Europe, and it's the best. You cannot go past the Iliad in terms of storytelling, writing, and its subject matter. And it's amazing that they could produce something like that 3,000 years ago. And then the theatre, they actually produced tragedy with meaning that's perennial to this day. And in Greek, the director is called the didactor. He
Yes.
teaches. He's actually teaching. So people attend a play to learn a story. So it might be the story of Medea or of Orestes or Electra, but there's actually a meaning in there. When Euripides wrote The Trojan Woman, he wasn't talking about the Trojan War as such and recounting the history. He was saying how bad and cruel the war is, and that women and children are victims and are murdered. And so they are meanings and principles and tenets that are so perennial that they are still read to this day.
This is why storytelling is paramount throughout history. Without storytelling, we can't go back and explore history. We can't
is right.
evolve into the future.
That is right.
The arts, which you and I are both very passionate about, we're both thespians, we've performed on stage, and it's very important. Theatre, which is, I'm very proud to say that we are the creators of theatre, educate, challenge.
Absolutely.
Challenge beliefs, inspire anger, and all these emotions that we need to live so we can evolve and learn.
Absolutely. I'm just writing now about the Greek Civil War, and Euripides wrote that when kindred blood is spilt, it pollutes the land. And
That's profound, isn't it?
it is, it really is. And so, and it's a constant theme, like Medea, she kills her children. Heracles does with his wife. So he's obsessed with this theme that you must not kill your close relative. The murder of a close relative brings on disaster to the whole land, to everything around it. And it's amazing, isn't it?
It actually, it really is. It's the foundation of civilization.
And without doubt. So there it is in black and white. Yes, the Sumerians and Egyptians had writing before the Greeks, but they kept records of how many bushels of wheat, who was the public official in charge of a particular area. So there was a difference. And not only was there a difference, but the Greeks, being the individuals that they are, made sure that when they wrote something or created a work of art, they attached their name to it.
They attached their name to it.
So people would know about it forever.
So let's go back to the revolution, post-revolution, and the establishment of what we know now as Greece. How important were things like the diaspora, Philhellenes, even religion in forming Greece as we know it today, post the revolution?
Yeah, the diaspora played the most important role because they funded the early days of the revolution. That they didn't have enough funds, and so it came the revolution ran out of money and everyone became desperate. So Philhellenes in Europe set up committees to raise money. And that's where the Philhellenes played a very important role, because it's not the 1,000 or so Philhellenes who fought for Greece. In real terms, they contributed nothing. It was the Philhellenes who set up committees that raised money that assisted. It was the Philhellenes who influenced their government.
Who were some of those Philhellenes?
Now, Lord Byron was a great Philhellene because he did all three. He fought for Greece, he raised money for Greece and actually contributed his own money, and he also influenced the British government, which was against the Greek Revolution. We must highlight that. The British government was against the revolution.
Why?
Because they did not want the breakup of the Ottoman Empire, as they saw this as an opportunity for the Russian Empire to move down to the Mediterranean. They knew the Greeks were Orthodox. They knew the Greeks were sympathetic to the Russians. They saw that the common religion would be a device, a way for Russia to move into the Balkans and to
And a
take
powerful union.
Yeah.
Via religion.
Correct. And this was a very important factor for the British, and that's why throughout the 19th century, the British held on to the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was the sick man of Europe during the 19th century, but it was the British that did not allow the Ottoman Empire to collapse. Something happened during World War I, however, which changed everything, changed the entire momentum, where Britain actually did want the Ottoman Empire to collapse, but that was because there was an arrangement with Russia during World War I, and they were on the same side. But things changed after the Russian Revolution. Again, I've gone on a tangent.
No. We're talking about the Ottomans, we're talking about, but the greatest influences and divergence of history have been the British.
They have. The British are a problem. And not because I say it, because
history says it.
You can see what happened in India and Pakistan, in Ireland, in Africa. So there are a lot of examples of the British intervention. What we have to understand, and we don't most of the times because we get carried away with our personal political beliefs, is that no country in the world cares about any other country.
Mm-hmm.
There is no morality and there's no justice.
Sadly.
It is always national interest. If it's in Britain's national interest to support Greece, they will do it, as they did in 1878 when there was a war between Russia and the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottomans were defeated, and they set up the Treaty of San Stefano and created a big Bulgaria. Immediately, Britain got involved and reversed that, so that the Macedonia was given back to the Ottoman Empire. So it depends on the circumstances and what's in national interest. I'll give you another example. During the Crimean War in the early 1850s, you had England and France on the side of the Ottoman Empire against Russia. Greece at the time was pro-Russian and wanted to enter the war on the side of Russia so that we could liberate Thessaly. And in fact, Greek units went into Thessaly for that purpose, because our border finished at Lamia. Thessaly was still part of the Ottoman Empire. And the Anglo-French actually occupied Athens. They sent troops to occupy Athens so Greece would stay neutral. So we've had this British intervention in Greek affairs from day one. And if you saw the film Kapodistrias,
I plan to see it. I haven't actually had a chance to see it yet.
Well, actually, I didn't see it either. But the fact is that because they perceived Kapodistrias to be pro-Russian, there was always this concern that the Greeks would gravitate towards the Russian sphere of influence. I don't believe that the British actually assassinated Kapodistrias, because I think the film does present that aspect.
Mm-hmm. I just want to talk about how the islands all then started coming under the banner of Greece, because I know that it's a huge topic, but they all were independent and then eventually were all coming under the
They
same
all
flag.
have a different history. For example, during the 1821 revolution, most of the islands actually participated in the revolution. Crete, at a lot of bloodshed was
Absolutely.
in Crete, but it was not allowed to become part of Greece. Britain against it, under no circumstances will Crete be given to Greece. And Cyprus, because it was far away, Cyprus actually contributed funds towards the revolution, but it could not be liberated. The Cyclades were the only parts that were given to Greece. And in the Protocol of London, there was actually, one of the protocols refers to the Catholic community of the Cyclades. France insisted on this so that they would not be ousted, because you asked an earlier question, what role did religion play in the Greek War of Independence? It played a major role. I know it's not trendy or fashionable to admit this, but all the Greek leaders used as their banner the cross, and it was for fatherland and faith, για πίστη και πατρίς, that the war was led. Kapodistrias was the same, Kolokotronis was the same. It was a major factor. In fact, there were Turks living in Greece who wanted to fight with the Greeks, and they weren't allowed to because they were Muslims, they were Turks. So the division between Muslim and Christian was major. We do not understand how major it was during the Greek Revolution. And the strange thing about it is, when Byron and some of his followers came to Western Greece, in the Missolonghi area, they saw Greeks, Turks, and Albanians all dressed the same, all speaking the same. They couldn't tell the difference.
That's a contentious point on a lot of our, because they say, well, look what you're wearing. You're, you're Albanian. You're this. We.
So there wasn't much between them. There wasn't much between them. But religion was the critical factor. It was the critical factor, and we shouldn't overlook that.
But religion is an ethnicity, though.
No, it's not an ethnicity. But I have this debate many times when people criticize the Byzantine Empire and that the Christians destroyed Hellenism. And we mustn't get stuck in a particular period, because Heraclitus said you can't step in the river in the same spot. History flows, everything changes, and you can't look at what happened in the 4th century and compare to what happened in the 16th century. You can't look at
Things
Athens.
flow, exactly.
Yes. Athens in the 5th century was different from Athens in the 18th century. So it's different history. The church actually did Hellenism a great favor, because by maintaining the Greek language as the language of the liturgy, it was an important factor in people's identity.
Absolutely.
And that contributed to the Greek War of Independence rallying around the church and the faith.
When it comes to investments and business opportunities, you need more than promises. You need experience that delivers. You need people you can trust. Helco Consulting provides strategic partnerships, clear methods, and services with a strong presence in Greece. Helco Consulting, your trusted consultants in Greece.
When legal matters affect your business or life, you need guidance you can trust. Natasha Karamihu provides expert legal advice, protecting your interests and navigating every challenge. Natasha Karamihu, your trusted legal voice in Greece.
Of course, we talked about Hellenism and the importance of preserving Hellenism for the world. Let me go back to when there was the mass migration from Greece after the war, and people dispersed around the world and started their associations from the various islands, villages, and that maintained their identity and their culture and their language through many generations, leading up to now 2026. where it is becoming harder because of mixed marriages and generational births, we have an opportunity that was given to us by the government, a huge parcel of land, which we call the Hellenic village. The associations all had a major opportunity to join together to produce something for future generations to have, be it a museum, a cultural centre, be it whatever you wanted it to be. That now is in jeopardy, and I would like you to talk us through what happened, why these associations aren't fighting. We should all be united and fight to preserve, to keep the money from that land, to keep Hellenism alive and our identity, and have something to show for the generations of work, the contributions our forefathers made. And these associations is about to come to nothing.
Christina, you have raised so many issues there that's going to take us hours to get through. But I just want to say one thing. We are living in the most historical transition in the history of mankind. So there are opportunities to maintain identity enormous, but there are also the challenges are even more great because of changes in government policies, the globalization, the reduction in the importance of classics and humanities and languages. And this is why it is imperative as a community that we are organized and can get our act together. And yes, about 30 years ago, a large parcel of land was purchased at a very discounted price from the New South Wales state government. And this was purchased by the associations. And I want to acknowledge the associations because when they were established in the 50s and 60s, they played an important role in helping migrants come from their place of origin in Greece, their island, their village, their town, to get and settle in this country. On Saturdays have their dances and a place of meeting. But now events have changed. We said nothing stays in the same spot. And this land is worth approximately $120 million. It has been sold. The original purpose of this transaction was to create a recreational and cultural center for all the Greek community. Mm-hmm. We had difficulty in purchasing this land at the time the government made this offer. I was the president of the federation at the time, and I was also their lawyer. So I was involved throughout in its acquisition. And it took 3 years, what should have taken 6 weeks.
Yes.
Because we could not raise the money. And as a result, we extended the opportunity to associations and organizations outside the federation. We now have a situation where it has been sold for $120 million. There are 21 associations that are the beneficiaries or unit holders because the owner still remains the federation. And they will take a decision very shortly on how to divide this money. And the fear, our concern, and it's a real concern, is that the decision that will be taken is that this $120 million will be divided amongst the association.
And go into pockets. What I find very objectionable is that there's a lot of these associations that have been inactive for a long, long time. And because they happen to have a share, greed has popped and reared its ugly head. They're all coming together and they're all putting their hand out to get a share, the monetary, what they're entitled to for their share of the $120 million.
Yes, unfortunately that is correct. And most associations, can I put in, have a very limited time span left. They've got an expiry date and they won't last out 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so what is going to happen to this money? We have an opportunity now to guarantee not only our community's present day needs, but right into the 22nd century. We need to accept adopt and run with this vision. And what is being proposed is that half the funds go into a Panhellenic fund, a future fund, which will be used for the needs of the community only in welfare and education. So there won't be a school, a Greek studies program at a university, a welfare centre, a nursing home, childcare centres. They will all be funded by this fund forever without any need to ever have to do fundraisers or dances or balls or picnics to raise a few
That's
$100.
phenomenal. But who are the decision makers and the stakeholders that have the power to override money going to the pockets of individual associations? Is there a governing law? You're a lawyer. What's the legal status and implication of this happening?
Well, if at an AGM of the Federation, the 21 unit holders decide to divide the money, it will go to the associations. What happens to that money once it gets into the association account is a matter for the association. One of these 21 associations is actually not a Greek community association. It's actually a business association, which came in to assist us and now is looking at
Money.
Incredible windfall. I will not mention the association over the air.
Well, if I knew who it was, I would mention it. Was there not an MOU that was formulated at the time of the sale of this is the memorandum of understanding and this money can only be used for this purpose?
Well, again, it comes back to the circumstances. We were offered this land from the New South Wales state government. We had a contract. It was going to be purchased by our federation. It was purchased by our federation. It could not raise the money. A number of associations from the 28, only about 18 were interested in becoming unit holders. Then again, the money was not enough. Then we had to go to the wider community. So it was a desperate situation where either we lose this opportunity or open it up. And one of the terms of opening it up was that the Federation would hold it as trustee for the associations that became unit holders. So also, whilst the understanding of everyone involved was that this was for the community, legally the situation is more complex. And
because then you have the commercial entity of people that put money in and they're entitled to, they see it as their return on their investment.
that is some of the associations are seeing that. But the real problem at the moment is also that we have the Hellenic Club, which has a need for the funds. And might I say that I understand and very sympathetic to this need, because the Hellenic Club is a very important association in our community and owns very valuable real estate.
It's their centenary year as well.
And it's the
Yes.
centenary year. And it's important that their financial stability is not jeopardized. So I see that as a genuine situation where they need support. But what has happened is that the Hellenic Club has persuaded the other associations, and the other associations put it as such. Why does the Hellenic Club get its money and we don't get any? And so that's how they put it. If the Hellenic Club gets its money, we should get our money.
Can I have a point of view on that?
Of course. In fact, might I say, I would like the community to come out with a point of view. We've got a petition about to be circulated. We're having a public meeting on Monday, the 1st of June, at the Greek Orthodox community at Lekemba.
We'll get on to that, yeah.
So that
for me, the Hellenic Club is very active. It's actively promoting Hellenism. It supports other organizations, fundraising. It is like the epicenter of what we have as a Hellenic community, and it is 100 years old.
I absolutely agree with you, but the most important factor is it has a valuable piece of real estate that no one else has in the heart of the city. And if we can build this Panhellenic fund, in 30 or 40 years, we can build our own Greek skyscraper.
So tell us what we need to do. What's the next step?
We have to influence the associations that are going to take this decision, and the decision has not been made, but the information coming out is that it's almost certain that they're going to vote to divide the money.
Is it an open public meeting?
No.
Just for the...
It's just the 21 associations that are involved. So we are members of these associations in one way or another. Either we're a member of a HEPA, or we're a member of the Hellenic Club, or we're a member of the Thessalians. Or
Can we name all the stakeholders?
Well, there are about 4 or 5 Thessalian associations. There are about 4 or 5 associations from Achaia. The Arcadians are involved. The Messalongi is involved. So someone's listening. We're all involved.
Well, my point is for their members to
Correct.
rally. We need to rally the members.
Correct.
And the members need to
Absolutely.
understand that a lot of these people that run associations are volunteers. I'm not making any assumptions or suggestions, but you can get that money. And if you've got volunteers, you have committees that change, that money can be squandered and it's gone. Let's rally, if you're a member of the associations that have a stakehold in this venture, lobby your committees and vote against having your part of the share, because you're not going to be guaranteed that that share is going to be used constructively or for the endurance of Hellenism or the greater community. I think we need to be so united on this.
This, I believe, is the most important decision ever taken in the 125 years of our organised community. We've never had such an opportunity. We can guarantee our future. Imagine we put half the funds into a Panhellenic fund, used the other half for establishing a Panhellenic centre with our theatre, with our a library, with our museum. Things that we've been all dreaming about and talking about for 30 years.
It's within our reach.
Right in our hands.
Let's make it happen,
This is
guys.
a no-brainer.
Let's make it happen. Lobby your associations. Costa, I think we've come to the end of the podcast. We've covered so much ground, but we need to get you back because there's a lot more to cover. And I thank you so much. The Greek Podyssey have been very honoured to have you as a guest on our program today.
Thank you, Christina. It's been my great pleasure. But I end up with this message. We must have the vision. This is an opportunity that no other Greek community anywhere in the world has got. We can guarantee our future and the future of generations that are nowhere born yet into the 22nd century.
That's the important, the ones that aren't even born yet. Is there an online petition that people can sign?
We are about to launch one.
Right. So we will put details of the online petition. The link, once it's on, please work hard. Tell your executive committees, we don't want the money to go to our association. Let's build for the future generations. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, Costa.
Thank you.
And we'll keep you updated on progress. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Greek Podyssey. Thank you always to our valuable sponsors, but most of all to everybody that supports us, shares our podcasts, comments, engages. You're very, very important to all of us, very important to our culture. We thank you.
This podcast brought to you by Natasha Karamiho, your trusted legal voice in Greece for all your legal matters, and Helco Consulting, trusted services for all business and investments in Greece.
I'm Christine Stavropoulos,
Κι εγώ ο Νίκος Σαμίδης. Και αυτό είναι το Greek Podyssey, το podcast της Ομογένειας.
a podcast for Hellenes worldwide, sharing stories, culture, identity, laughs, and a little bit of tsugrisma along the way.
Γιατί μπορεί να φύγαμε από την Ελλάδα, αλλά η Ελλάδα δεν έφυγε ποτέ από μας.